Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of the Meet the Truth podcast. I'm your host, Jason Barrett. I'm a carnivore pharmacist, and today the theme of the message is going to be, why are you doing carnivore? I think that's the most important question that we can ask anybody if you're considering doing it. Not only because it's going to tailor what approach that I think that you should take to the diet, which version of the diet, if you will, that you should do, but also so that when the going gets tough, and it will, your why is big enough to carry you through, and you can remind yourself why you started doing it in the first place. Now, if your why is immeasurably big because you are searching for answers and you are not finding them, and you've heard great things about this, and you really think that it can improve your life, give your health back, elevate you back to the best version of yourself, then I bet you will be able to stick with this, because you're going to stick with it long enough to see the long-term benefits of this diet. And even when the going gets tough, it's not going to be hard to continue because you're going to remember why you're doing it. Okay. So let's dive right in here. We'll go over, first of all, the different whys that are pretty common, some key mindset shifts, some pitfalls I'm going to warn you about, some of the social and mental challenges of this thing. So first of all, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? There's a whole bunch of different reasons for why you're doing it. It's becoming more popular these days. I've now been on this diet for nearly 6 years, and I'll here in a little while I'll tell you exactly why. If you want to hear my full story, I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 1, where I give my full story for how I landed in this diet, what my predicament was, and why it absolutely saved my life, gave my life back, and was literally 100 times more powerful than I ever thought it could be. But let's just start off with a few whys. Are you doing it because it's a fad diet, because it sounds cool, because you hear other people are doing it, so you want to kind of give it a try? Are you doing it for weight loss? I feel like weight loss is a pretty common, because people are hearing that they're seeing that these people are losing weight on this diet. Some of them aren't even doing it to lose weight, yet they are losing weight long term. And so they decide they want to do it for weight loss. On the far end, and I'm just going to put this out there because this was me, are you doing it because you have been debilitated with an autoimmune chronic inflammatory condition, and you've gone to numerous specialists, you've been on dozens of medications? In my case, I went all the way to the Mayo Clinic and only got sicker over the course of a decade plus, until eventually they told me that I probably wasn't going to be around much longer if this thing progressed the way it was going. I got extremely desperate. That's the only reason I even considered this diet, because as a pharmacist, it sounded like the most preposterous diet I've ever heard of. But I decided to give it a 30-day challenge, and let me tell you, it was the most powerful thing for inflammation by far. No drug came close. No other diet came nearly as close to this one. Some of them did help, but it didn't even hold a candle versus this. So first of all, let's talk about, if you're doing it because it's just fad curiosity, be careful if you're doing that, because this isn't just another diet trend. What you're going to notice for the people who it's really been life changing with, especially if they've been debilitated with something, or they've lost their health, or it could be a metabolic thing, it could be a hormonal thing, who knows what it is. It could be a skin issue. A lot of skin issues get resolved on this. And it's not just a diet trend, because what you'll notice is the people where it really works for these people, it's a lifestyle. It's not, I wouldn't even consider it a diet. It's a lifestyle, because to them, they can see that this is the best nourishment that they could give their body. And by removing all the other garbage, their body is able to heal itself and stay in an optimal state. And so it's really good. If you're doing it for weight loss, it does work for weight loss. In my case, in particular, I did not do it for weight loss. In fact, I didn't even care if I gained weight. I was just trying to feel better. I had so many symptoms head to toe. I was debilitated with all these problems, from on every level. And so even if I would have gained weight, as long as I felt better, that my goal was to just feel better, to optimize my health, to get back to, a normal state of health. And like I said, it works, but this is where I'll caution you. most people who are doing any diet for weight loss, not just carnivore, if you're doing any diet, they come into it with a calorie restrictive mindset, thinking, okay, I can only have, 1,000 calories, or I've got to stay in a calorie deficit every single day so that I give my body the chance to burn more calories than I put in, and all this stuff. What I'll say is, if you're going to do that version of the diet, I caution you, because most calorie restrictive diets, if not all, long term, are not sustainable, because you either end up deprived or depleted or just tired from malnourishment. I mean, think about if you had, a pet or livestock, and you knew what the adequate nutrition was for them, and you decided, you know what, I'm gonna cut that in half. I'm gonna save a nickel, I'm gonna cut that in half. What do you think's gonna happen? It's gonna be pretty obvious when it's not yourself that in, long term, over the course of say you did that for 3 months, it's not going to be doing well. It's going to be malnourished. Now, it's probably not going to be dead, but it's not going to be thriving either. Same way if you had a garden, and let's say that you knew how much water and how much, nutrients and everything you needed to help with that garden so it would flourish. Think if you cut that in half and then you ran it forward 3 months. What's that plant going to look like? What is the fruit of that going to look like? It's not going to be optimal. Okay. It's going to be, so like I said, any diet where you're doing that restriction, I'm going to caution you, long term, you're probably not going to be able to stick with it, because you're just not really going to feel that great. Okay. So on this diet, it's imperative that you eat enough. I'm going to go more into that later, but I've got to touch on that now. Now, early scale fluctuations, even weight gain in the first few weeks or months, is actually pretty common, because a lot of people are nutrient depleted, and so their body is extra hungry, for those first whatever time period it is, and until their body can kind of build back up and get to the level it wants to do, sometimes they're eating, quite a bit. And they may even gain weight. In my case, I think I gained 15 to 20 pounds over the first few months. And then by the, 6 or 7 month mark, I got on the scale, and really I hadn't changed as far as the number on the scale. Now, I had changed on the, metabolically I was changing. I was putting on lean mass. I was losing some fat. But the number on the scale really hadn't even budged. I was almost exactly where I started. Yet in the next 6 to 7 months, I lost 50 to 60 pounds. Because of the metabolic changes that were occurring inside my body, and how efficient it was getting at using fat as fuel. And I didn't even feel it. That was the best part. I was never hungry. I can't stress that enough. So if you're going to be doing it for weight loss, know that you need to be looking at long term. If you're looking for a short term weight loss thing through calorie restriction, I suggest you try another diet, because any diet will work. If that's your approach in the short run, it will work. Now, if you're doing it for a chronic inflammatory condition, maybe it's autoimmune, maybe it's not. But if your doctor, or if you've been labeled with a diagnosis that is rooted in inflammation, I'm talking to you. That was me. Let me tell you, this is the kryptonite versus chronic inflammation. Like I said, they threw the pharmacy at me, and I'm telling you, even the big guns, like the biologics, like Humira and Enbrel, and some of these medications that are crazy powerful, didn't hold a candle to the anti-inflammatory power of this diet. And not to mention, this diet to me is delicious. I love eating steak and eggs. I don't know who doesn't. It's nutritious, it's fulfilling, it's like you're satiated. You get to eat until you're full. You never go hungry, And so, but for me, like I said, I had been debilitated with this disease for well over a decade. I'd gone to the Mayo Clinic and everything, and still just continued to get sicker. I finally had a couple of specialists, a couple of doctors, tell me that I had such major inflammation on C1 and 2 on my spine, that the two highest vertebrae, basically where it connects to the back of your skull, were eroding, like significantly eroding. And they basically said, hey, if this continues, it's likely to fracture, and C3 controls respiration. Basically telling me I'm going to die if I take a fracture here. I got desperate. I was probably 31 years old when this happened to me. I had 3 kids at home. I had a wife. I was the provider for my family. I had so many things going for me. I was scared. I was desperate. I was willing to try any diet. And let me tell you right now, if carnivore wouldn't have been the diet and it would have been something else, I'd still be telling you, I'd still be having this podcast. We'd just be talking about a different diet. Carnivore was it for me, okay? Carnivore worked. It got to the source of the inflammation in such a powerful way. And let me just go ahead and fast forward. About a year and a half, 2 years on that diet, was off every single medication. Every single one of my symptoms were gone. And I even fired my rheumatologist because I didn't need a rheumatologist anymore. True story. Desperation can lead to breakthrough healing when nothing else works. When nothing else worked, I was so desperate. If someone would have said, "Hey, if you stand on your head and drink vinegar through your nose 3 times a day, that'll help with your inflammation," I would have done that with a smile on my face. You have to understand, on a scale of 1 to 10, I was a 10. I might have been a 12 out of 10. Okay, that's how desperate I was. And so, if you're in that boat, I'm definitely talking to you. Now, some mindset shifts that I had to, they were easy for me because of my desperation level when I came into this. But let me give you just a few little tips here that'll help if you can change your mindset around these things, and they'll help carry you forward, especially when the going gets tough. So instead of focusing on short-term fixes like weight loss or short-term this, whatever, look at long-term nourishment. Look at what it's going to do over the long term, and look at it more of not what you are eating, but what you're not eating, because that's really where the magic is. The magic is in the removal of all the harmful foods that are going in. And that's why carnivore is so powerful. It's the most powerful elimination diet on the planet because it removes anything that could be problematic. Any sort of plant, chemical or toxin that a lot of people have one or the other, and they may not even know it. That was me. Any sort of sugar, any sort of grains or processed, ultra-processed, preservatives, artificial sweeteners, additives, the list goes on. It gets rid of all those without you even having to think. You don't have to turn around and look at the label. When you got a ribeye steak, or you're cracking an egg, or you got a fillet of salmon, or you're eating some cheese or whatever, you don't have to turn it around and read the label when it's a single ingredient. So it's very easy. You add your own salt or spice. If you can handle spices, add those. That's fine if you handle them. I really don't, so I usually just stick to just salt, mineral salt, good salt like Redmond's real salt. But, just make sure that you're keeping the long-term aspect in mind, because long-term, when you give your body a break from harmful compounds, it can heal. It can heal. It gets the chance to heal, and there's no medicine more powerful than your body, okay? When your body's given the chance and adequate nutrition and adequate rest and adequate hydration and keeping stress under control, your body can pull off some miraculous things. The other mindset shift is, instead of thinking of it as a restrictive diet, because it's easy to go, man, this is so restrictive, this is tough, this is hard. Like I'm restricted. Think about it, you gain freedom from constant hunger and cravings. It's such a satiating diet. If I sit down and I eat, let's say I eat some hamburger patties and some eggs for breakfast or brunch or whatever time of the day it is when I'm going to eat my first meal, I am completely satisfied. In an hour, I'm not going to want to eat again. Usually I can go 8 to 10 hours. I don't even need lunch. Let's just go all the way to dinner, because it was so dense and had so much, it's got plenty of calories, it's got plenty of fat and protein, it's got all your amino acids, all your essential fatty acids, it's got, vitamins and minerals and nutrients that are very much part of all that. And so your body goes, you gave me exactly what I needed. No garbage. You didn't put a bunch of crap in here, and you stay full. You're just not hungry. And so, instead of focusing on it being restrictive, focus on, this is very simple. I can eat a simple meal and stay full. And then when I get hungry again in the evening, I can eat a simple meal and I'm satiated. Like, you don't have to deal with all the cravings and all the other stuff, constantly being hungry. From weight-centric, again, if all you care about is a number on a scale, I can tell you, that number doesn't mean near as much as you think when you're just looking at it alone. Your body composition matters. You could have 3 different guys that weigh 200 pounds or 250 pounds or whatever you want to call it. And One of them could have a completely different body composition as far as fat to muscle ratio. It's going to mean different things. One could be a full-blown diabetic, and one could be they could play in the NFL, you know? So you can't just look at a number on a scale, because if that's all you're looking at and you're not asking, how do I feel? What is my body composition? Metabolically, how am I doing? What's my insulin sensitivity or resistance look like? What are my hormones looking like? If you're not looking at the whole picture and you're only focusing on a number, I'm not sure any diet's going to work if that's all you're worried about. So, instead of focusing and making it a weight-centric diet, make it a health-centric diet. When the body heals, and it may take, it depends on where you are when you start. It may take you a couple of months, or it may take you a couple of years. It just really depends on where you're at and how bad it is. But when the body can heal, it normally just balances out. It just kind of normalizes on its own. You don't have to starve yourself to death. You don't have to do all this crazy stuff. You'll just notice, I feel good. My weight is dropping. My pants are fitting better. I'm getting compliments from people, whatever. But give your body the chance. My advice, to be honest with you, if you're going to try this diet, put the scale in the closet. Don't even look at it. Don't even pull it out. See how you feel. Keep a journal. Write down all your symptoms before you start. Write down what they are on day 30, day 60, day 90. And you tell me, how do you feel? If it's anything like me, you're not going to care what that scale says. Even if you got on that scale and you had gained 30 pounds, you're going to be like, you know what? It's worth it. I feel great. It's okay. So now some pitfalls. Again, over-focusing on that scale. That's why I say I would almost remove it, because you can get emotional about it. You can stress out about it. You can get frustrated when you feel like you should have lost a pound because if you've been diligent, you haven't cheated, and you kind of feel like your body should be reacting faster than it is. Guess what? Your body can only do so much so fast. It may have some major damage on the inside that it has to fix first. Your gut may need some major healing, and when it gets a break from all the harmful foods, it can do that. And after it heals and it can optimize, then the weight will kind of just start melting off. I kind of compare it to like an ice cube. If you had an ice cube, so you had it sitting on the counter and it was 10 degrees, and we all know that ice is going to melt at 32 degrees, or, that's where it freezes. So 32.1 degrees, it's going to start. Well, let's say every day that counter, heats up 0.1 degrees. What's going to happen after 10 days? Nothing. Did something happen? Yes, it did. The heat rose, but not enough to matter. And then eventually, with consistency, that thing's going to get to 32.1 degrees, and when it does, it ain't going to be slow, okay? It ain't going to be slow. When it starts melting, literally, that's kind of what it felt like for me. When I finally hit that tipping point, it just started melting off. I just felt like the fat just started melting off, and it kind of didn't at all until it did. And then when it did, woo, did it happen, So I'm not saying that that's going to happen for everybody, but that was what happened to me. So, but expect some fluctuations early. Some people gain, some people lose. It really depends on where you're starting. But again, I wouldn't overly focus on that. Comparing progress to others. Everybody adapts differently. Everybody's starting from a different spot. Some people are going to have worse problems than others. And so if you hear about some crazy success story from someone and they did it in 2 months, and then you do it for 2 months and it's not happening, everybody's different. Your timeline is different. Give it time, but keep track. How are you feeling? I can almost guarantee that you're going to have some improvement before you get to the full-blown end result. Another big pitfall to look out for is not eating enough. I've already said this. If you're going to be super calorie restrictive, I wouldn't even encourage you to try this diet, because it ain't going to work, because you're malnourished. Even though you're eating the right food and not eating the wrong food, you're not getting enough. So carnivore is not a calorie restrictive diet by any means. Listen to your body's signals. When it says it's hungry, eat until you're full. Stop eating. When it says it's thirsty, drink. Don't keep drinking if your body's telling you that you don't need any more. Same with, listen to your body. I promise you, it's simple and it's the best guide. It's the best guide, So if you wake up one day and you're twice as hungry as you normally are, eat twice as much. There's nothing wrong with that. It ain't going to happen again tomorrow. So just keep it simple. So, some things as far as like the challenges on this diet, some, that I've had to deal with early on, and I think everybody does to some degree. But again, it's going to go back to how big your why is. But, when you're eating out, sometimes you're going to have some social or some mental challenges. And, when you're eating out, just stick to simple meat options. But let's say you go to a birthday party, or let's say you go on vacation, or let's say you go to a wedding, or it's the holidays where you get this tradition of having a massive feast and your family's surrounding you. You've been doing it since before you can even remember. Those are probably some of the toughest days, because your entire life you've just gone and feasted at that feast. You've eaten everything there, and now you're on carnivore and you're thriving. Well, it's going to be a little bit tough, but again, when you remember why you're doing it, especially if it gave your health back, it's not going to be hard to just stick to the diet. And then if people go look at your plate and go, "What's going on there? Like what is that diet? That's or oh, you're going to have a heart attack tomorrow," judging you and basically casting just their opinion right on you as soon as you walk by, just throwing it at you. Just remember, hey, I'm not just this is what I do. This is what I tell them. I'm not doing this for you, okay? I'm doing this for me. I got really sick eating that food, and even though that food does taste really, really good, and trust me, I want it worse than nothing tastes better than feeling good, okay? Took me a long time to come to that conclusion, but nothing in this room tastes better than feeling good, and I want to feel good, and I want to live a long, healthy life, and this is the proper nutrition to do it. Anytime you're feeling judged, because you may get to the point where you're putting your progress out there, maybe on a social media account, or you're just telling somebody, or someone may ask, they'll be like, "Man, you're looking good. It looks like you've lost weight. Your skin's glowing. You're in a good mood. You're optimistic. What have you done?" And then you go, "I'm on carnivore. I only eat meat." And then all of a sudden, you can see the look on their face. And then they can't restrain themselves. They have to say something that's kind of judgmental again. Remember why you're doing it. You're not doing it for them. And they just gave you a compliment until they knew what you said you were doing. And then they decided, "Oh, well, that can't be the answer. Let me judge you real quick." Forgive them. Let it go. Don't let it bother you. Don't let it shake you. And if they do continue to pressure you, just say, "Listen, I'm not doing this for you. I'm not judging you for what you're eating. If what you're eating is not this and you feel great, kudos to you. I've never felt better. I'm not going to stop. And if you have a problem with it, you're welcome to leave." I'm sorry, but they're probably not that good of a friend if they're judging you that harshly, even though you're thriving. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Now, one thing about this diet is, I've said this several times, it is simple. It is the simplest diet I can even think of, just because you could reduce it down to literally just beef, salt. One version of the diet is beef, salt, and water. That's called the lion diet. And for some people, it's almost required that they do that, because they have so many food sensitivities and they just can't tolerate a whole lot. Even on the carnivore diet, they have to cut down and do a very restrictive version. So it's simple, but it's far from easy. Simple and easy do not mean the same thing. It's simple, but just keep in mind, you know what? I'm sticking to my guns. This is the reason why I'm doing it. It's a strong reason. It's helping me. And then, like I said, let your body be the judge. So what do you gain? What are a few of the things that you gain long term if you can stick with this diet and get this nutrition and keep all the harmful things away? And again, it's about what you're not eating more so than what you are eating. Energy. Number one, energy, and not just regular energy. I'm talking stable, high, flat energy, no midday crashes, because you're not going to have that sugar spike and that insulin response and all the other hormonal cascade that comes after that to cause that midday slump where you can barely keep your eyes open at 2 o'clock. You're not going to have that, and it will be apparent, especially if you've been dealing with that for years. It was for me. Clarity. The brain fog lifts, and let me tell you, I didn't even know I had brain fog until it was gone, and then it was like, wow, my brain is working now. I couldn't believe it. But if you would have told me before, like, "Man, I think you got some brain fog," when I had it, I would have been like, "No, I don't. What are you talking about?" But once it was gone, oh my goodness, it was so apparent. And even now, if I you know, I've been on the diet almost 6 years, so I've had a few, I've tried to bring some things back, or I've decided to have, I go on a vacation and decide to go on a few little splurge where I don't do it. The brain fog and all these symptoms come back loud and clear. And then if I can get right back on carnivore within, 4 or 5 days, I can level back out, and all of a sudden I feel the brain fog lift again. So I've experienced it so many times that it's very powerful. Your focus improves whenever that brain fog lifts. You can focus more, you can get things done. You're more creative. You have aha moments, you have good ideas. It's easier for you to, articulate words, and conversation flows easier, and you can just keep up, and you're more interested in things. And usually that directly affects, your relationships with people. It's easier to make friends, it's easier to maintain relationships, it's easier to see the whole picture, whenever you're analyzing something. So just the mental, the clarity that you get on that. Confidence is big on this one. Why? Control over cravings. And that was one of the biggest things I learned, was the difference between hunger and cravings. I really didn't even, I thought those were the same. I thought, man, I'm craving this, that means I'm hungry. No, it's not. No, it's not. When you're craving processed garbage or sugar or any of that stuff out there that has super addictive qualities, the food industry is well aware of, and they craft these foods to be addictive to where you will crave them. They're going to give you the maximum dopamine hit every time you eat them. Then you're driven by cravings. Every time you crave something, that's when, I'm craving this, I'm going to go get it. I'm craving that, I'm going to go get it. Or maybe you see a commercial on TV, during the ball game, and it's got some junk food, some fast food on there, and you're like, oh, that looks good. Well, guess what? Within that, in probably no time at all, you're pulling up DoorDash, or it's halftime. I'm going to run down there, I'm going to get one of them burgers real quick, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. We've all been there. But on this diet, those cravings vanish because that food is gone. And when you're hungry, you eat until you're full. But if you're in the middle of doing something important, you can kind of be like, you know what? I'm hungry, but I can wait 30 minutes to an hour. Whereas a craving, if it hits super strong, you're going to stop what you're doing. You're going to get up off that couch. You're going to go get in your car. You're going to drive across town. You're going to get whatever it is that's driving you, that addictive thing that's driving you. You're going to go get it. And you're going to get that dopamine hit. And it's going to be very pleasant for 5 to 10 minutes while you eat it. And then afterwards, you know how you feel when you get the indigestion and the heartburn and the midday, you got to come back and take a nap just to sleep off some of the bad stuff you just put in your body. It's all gone. It's all gone. And so you get that confidence, because you're not very confident if you're not in control. If cravings are the ones controlling what you're eating, how confident are you that you're going to be able to stick to any sort of diet? Probably not very. So it gives you that confidence, and that confidence is huge. Healing. Inflammation reduces at the source. Unlike a lot of the medications, prescription medications, like, again, I'm a pharmacist, a lot of those medications are targeted at reducing the symptoms of inflammation without actually getting to the source of the inflammation. And the problem with that approach is the inflammation is still festering in the background, number one. Number two is you never can get off those drugs. Like, if you stop taking them, you're screwed again. You're back to that inflammatory state. That sucks. Take it from someone who dealt with that for over a decade, and had so many symptoms. You don't want that. You want something that's going to turn the flames down, hit the flame, punch them right in the nose. And there is nothing on this planet more powerful than carnivore to hit your inflammation. And whenever you can reduce inflammation, a lot of times there's a gut tie. There's something going on, with the gut. It became compromised at some point. Maybe you have leaky gut. Maybe you have IBS. Maybe you have some gut diagnosis. And maybe you don't. Maybe it's just an autoimmune thing. But I can almost guarantee you, if you have an autoimmune diagnosis, there is a gut connection. Something about what you're putting in your mouth is affecting that. And whenever that inflammation is reduced, your body can heal itself, including the lining of the gut. And that is where you're really, really going to notice some big, big benefits, because the gut is huge, and especially if something's going through there consistently, even if you consider it healthy right now, your body might not. It might be irritating that lining of the gut. It might be adding fuel to the fire. That was what was happening to me. And I was eating, quote unquote, healthy. before, getting deleted, getting just completely decimated by the food that I was eating. So, and lastly, freedom. Freedom. How? No calorie counting. We've already talked about it. You don't need to count the calories. When you're hungry, eat until you're full. Stop. When you're hungry again, eat until you're full. If tomorrow you're more or less hungry, eat accordingly. Eat accordingly. I don't know how it gets more simple than that. You don't have to track macros. You don't have to, add up how many calories you're getting. You just eat until you're full. Period. Done. And there's no guilt. There's no guilt. You don't feel guilty. When you get a craving, let's say that you told yourself at the beginning of the month, this month I'm going to stay clean and I'm going to eat great. And let's say you pulled it off for 10 days or whatever. And then it's the weekend, and back to that scenario we were just talking about, the commercial comes on, the fast food pops up. You had a rough night, didn't sleep very well. It's kind of been a stressful day. You're like, you know what? I just ain't feeling it today. I need some comfort food. I'm going to go get that meal. And then you do it. And what do you feel afterwards? Not only do you feel like crap, but the guilt. The guilt, because you told yourself at the beginning of the month you weren't going to do this. But you had that vulnerable moment, that moment of weakness. And that's all it takes. And that's gone. On Carnivore, since you can stick with this, you know why you're doing it, you're confident, you have the clarity, you're healing, you have high energy, you have that control, and that it's guilt-free. And so that is huge. Now, I will say, a lot of people, you hear a lot of people say Carnivore is so restrictive. There's no way I can do that. Like, I can't do that. And I just want to put a little twist on that. I'd say Carnivore isn't restrictive. What's restrictive is living sick and inflamed for the rest of your life. That's restrictive. You're restricting what you're able to do. You're choosing not to be the optimal version of yourself. Your impact on others, on your loved ones, on your colleagues, on your coworkers, on your, the people you go to church with, or whatever organization, whatever you're trying to do, you're a lesser version of yourself. And if you choose to live in that sick and inflamed state, that's what's restrictive. So I would flip the script on you. I would say it's not restrictive because it allows you to be the top of your game. Listen, you don't have to believe me. I'm not here to try to convince you. What I would suggest is try it for 30 days and let your body tell you. Let your body be the judge of this diet. If it doesn't work, fine, that's great. At least now you can check it off the list of things you've tried, didn't work. On to the next. I can almost guarantee you, especially if you're laden with any sort of inflammatory condition at all, 30 days is going to be enough for you to see the light. And I won't need to tell you to do it anymore. You're going to be calling me, telling me how good this diet is, and I'm going to be like, congrats, welcome to the club. I know exactly what you're talking about. You're off to the races. You don't need my motivation anymore. You go tell your story now. It's not about eating more meat. It's, we've already talked about this. It's about what you're not eating, what's not hurting you. It's about what you're removing that has been hurting you, whether you knew it or not. Whether you knew it or not. There's so many things out there, and that's why Carnivore is so powerful. It's, at its essence, remember, it's an elimination diet. It's giving your body exactly what it needs and nothing else. I mean, I'm sorry, but that is just a good plan. So give it a try. And like we've said a few times, simple doesn't mean it's easy, but trust me, it's worth it. It's worth it, especially if you can keep going long term and see some of these benefits that sometimes don't show up for 3, 6, 12, 18 months. I promise you, I was just mind blown that, 6 months into this diet, I've got a new benefit show up. 12 months into this diet, I've got this new thing that wasn't there at month 6, but now it is, where I'm feeling even better. I mean, just in disbelief at how well my body was able to continue to optimize and thrive when I continued to give it proper nutrition. Now, let me just give you one, before we end this here, I'm going to give you a brief rundown of how I got to the point where I was so desperate. So essentially, I started getting these weird symptoms. I was in my 20s, and it eventually manifested into TMJ. I had to go to a TMJ specialist, and over the course of 2 or 3 years, it continued to get worse. And then I started getting all these weird neurological symptoms. I started getting puffy and swollen. My neck started hurting like hell. I mean, like, look, like just a knife in the back of my head. And finally, I went to just a normal primary care physician, a PCP. He ran the whole slew of tests, said that my labs looked clean. My thyroid was a little bit off, so he put me on a thyroid medication, referred me to a neurologist. Neurologist checks me because I was having a lot of neurological symptoms. He says, man, after he runs his battery of tests, you're strong as a horse. You're having neurological symptoms, but it's not neurological in nature. I'm going to refer you to another specialist, a rheumatologist. That's where the real circus began. Again, that's where they threw the whole pharmacy at me over the course of 6 to 7 years. I continued to get worse and worse. At my worst, again, I had TMJ. I had massive, massive cervical pain, including the significant erosion at C1 and 2. I had psoriatic lesions on my arms and on the back of my scalp. I had rheumatoid fingers. I had bilateral ankle swelling. My spine had several spots that showed up on scans that were majorly inflamed, including the SI joint. And that's when they started labeling me with more than one autoimmune diagnosis. Ankylosing spondylitis, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis. They're throwing all these out there. They're basically saying it doesn't matter which one it is because we treat them all in a very similar fashion. And eventually, once we went through all these drugs and I'm still just getting sicker, I said, refer me to the Mayo Clinic. I've got to get some answers. I go up there. They basically did more of the same, to my disbelief. I mean, I thought I would get the answers there. I was certain that I would. I didn't. I continued to get sicker, and eventually the erosion in my neck and in C1 and C2, that's when they told me that it's eroding so fast that if this continues, I'm not going to be around much longer. That's when I got desperate. That's when I started looking in places where I did not think I was going to find answers and started considering some things that sounded preposterous, like this diet. And let me tell you, I was mind blown when I did it. I just did it I told my wife I'm going to do it for 30 days. Within the first 2 weeks, I could not believe. I felt the inflammation on the inside that I had in my body for well over a decade going down in a more powerful way than any of those medications. And that was just in the first 2 weeks. From then, I told her, I don't think there's any way I'm stopping this diet on day 30, and I didn't. I did another 30, and then I did another 30, and then I did another 90, and then I did another 180. And before I knew it, we'd gone a whole year and I hadn't had a single cheat meal. That's how desperate I was. Even on my birthday and holidays and anniversary and everything, I didn't have a single cheat meal, not even one bite. That's how desperate I was. I had to get that desperate. I had to. If you would have came to me before I was that desperate, there's no way I could have pulled this diet off. I'll be the first one to admit it. But because of that, because I got that bad, because it was living hell. It was a nightmare living in that. And, even to this day, I still, kind of pinch myself sometimes and I go, is this real? Like, are all those symptoms really gone? Am I going to wake back up and be in that nightmare? And because, it's just hell, And so when I got released from hell, essentially, and got to have my health back, I don't take it for granted anymore. And like I said, nothing tastes better than than good health. So I wanted to share that story with you because that's where my turning point happened when I got desperate and I started actually trying some things. And boy, am I glad that I did, because that's why I'm here telling you this story here. Again, it's a simple thing, but you'll have mental barriers and social barriers and cultural barriers. Maybe you've got traditions, maybe you've got some food addictions, maybe you've got some habits, or maybe whatever it may be that can make this tough. Those will be challenging. Those are the most challenging part of this diet, is having to try to maneuver and stay on track whenever you've got all these things that were a very, very, very big part of your life before. I get it. But remember why you're doing it. Remember why you're doing it. And all I'll say is, I'll just touch base one more time on the whole why thing. Find your why. Find it. Define it. Know why you're doing it. If someone asks, why are you doing this? Tell them immediately. Know exactly why you're doing it. Tailor the diet to your version of why. If you're someone who's doing it for just because it sounds cool and or for weight loss and you really don't have any of the chronic inflammatory stuff that I was talking about, do the whole carnivore diet in its entirety. You got the whole menu at your disposal and you can eat as much as you want. You can eat everything, all the different proteins. You can eat chicken and pork and beef and venison and bison, you can have any fish, you can have all the dairy, the milk, the cheese, the yogurt, you can have butter, you can have bacon and sausage, you can have eggs. I mean, there's so much to choose from, and it's all so dense. All that food is just nutritionally dense that it's very satiating and satisfying. Now, if you're someone debilitated with more of the chronic inflammatory stuff, maybe you've got psoriasis, maybe you've got some gut, condition, or any sort of autoimmune chronic inflammatory thing. Let me tell you what worked for me the best, and this is from years of trial and error and trying to figure out which version of the diet was best for me. And it was that lion diet that I touched on earlier. For me, fatty cuts of beef, and you do need to make sure you're getting plenty of fat on this diet. I would say roughly 70% of your calories need to be coming from fat, and you need to be aiming for probably about a gram of protein per pound of body weight. And that's just a rough estimate. You don't have to sit down and calculate it. I'm just saying make sure you're getting at least that so that you're not malnourished. But the lion diet, wow, it is the most powerful version of this diet. Now, for me, now, don't get me wrong, any version of carnivore beats any other diet, But for me, when I cut out all the dairy, when I cut out the chicken and the pork, when I cut out the bacon and the sausage, and I stick to ribeyes, or I stick to brisket, or I stick to, even like a chuck roast, or anything that's got high fat with beef, any of these cuts, not only is it delicious and super satisfying, but it tends to be the most tolerated version of the diet, even for those with crazy amounts of food sensitivities and chronic inflammation. So I just want to say, guys, I've seen lives change, mine included, but I've been sharing this story. I'm a pharmacist. I've been sharing it with people that I've gotten to know over the years, and I've seen dozens of lives change. I know that it works. I know that not everybody can do it, and maybe you need to be 10 of 10 on the desperation scale. If you can't say you're a 10, maybe reconsider until you are a 10. If you want to try it, go ahead. But I will say, if you're a 10 of a 10, I'm very hopeful that you try this, because I think you're going to see some major benefits. It changed my life. I think it can change yours too. And until next time, guys, keep seeking truth, keep seeking health, and keep eating meat. And remember, nothing tastes better than good health. Till next time, guys, stay good.